Chairman, thank you so much. I know this hearing, thank you to all our witnesses for being here. I know this hearing is not about infrastructure, but I will say we don't need new legislation when it comes to infrastructure, being a recovering school board member, but what we need are some corrections in terms of Congress at some point meeting its obligation of 40% funding for special education. That was the promise was made when IDEA was enacted into law. We're in the teens, we're nowhere close, and quite frankly, I'll put a plug in for my ACE Act, All Children Are Equal, when it comes to Title I funding. As many of the schools you're talking about maybe would have some additional, quite frankly, financial assets to be able to invest more in their schools. So we don't need more bureaucracy. I think there's some things that we need to correct. Thank you again for our witnesses. Mr. Weiser, thank you for your leadership of the center in Philadelphia area. Incredible organization. I'm looking forward to actually working more with you on this. In your testimony, I was particularly struck by your statement that we have a crisis of knowledge in the country right now when it comes to civics education, and unfortunately, I agree. As you noted, I believe that there's no time better than the present to address this crisis, given the 250th celebration of our nation's founding coming up in less than 2 years. I've often said that education is a pathway to opportunity, and I believe there's no better occasion to help promote our nation's history, values, and traditions than our 250th birthday. So, Mr. Weiser, how do you think we can use this upcoming celebration to inspire the next generation of civic leaders?
Well, it's an interesting question. Thank you for it, Mr. Thompson. The bicentennial in 1976 triggered an interest in civics, recreations, history novels became bestsellers, made the careers of people like David McCullough. We think that same interest can be kindled in 2026. We've worked closely at the Jack Miller Center with Victoria Hughes, whom you may know, who is the co-chair for civics education for America 250. I think that's also a start, because we'll have a second 250th celebration coming up some years after on the 250th founding of the Constitution itself. And so this runway, if you will, creates a real opportunity to rekindle interest and activity.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting opportunity, absolutely. As we've heard in your testimony, part of the issue is a crisis of confidence in the classroom. Unfortunately, too often these days, facts are being needlessly politicized. For example, I think everyone can agree that all voting age adults in this country should be able to name the 3 branches of government. However, a 2023 survey from the Annenberg Public Policy Center found that only 17% of all Americans could not even name one branch of government. This is a failure in education, and we must do better in K-12 level educating the next generation. And each year, I'm proud to organize and participate in an event called Government Outreach back in my district. I use local universities. I represent a third of the landmass of Pennsylvania, so we spread these 3 things out for accessibility. And the event is for high school students throughout the Northwest and Central Pennsylvania, an opportunity to get involved in government, ask questions, and discuss current issues with a variety of speakers from different backgrounds. And over the years, I found that what makes events like these so successful is that high school students have rarely had the opportunity to interact with their government at any level or ask meaningful questions of their elected officials. And trust me, these kids are prepared when they show up for government outreach days. I get my hardest questions from them. So Mr. Weiser, given your work at the Jack Miller Center, how can we as a nation make government and civics more personal for our nation's youth to help educate them about our history, civil discourse, and our nation's values?
Thank you for the question. We can talk about buildings and curricula and all the rest, and those are important elements, obviously, in an educational system. but they're two intangibles. One is curiosity. We talked about that before. The other is confidence. Are we arming our teachers with what they need to do a really good job of teaching our culture, of teaching our history, of teaching our way of doing governmental business? I mean, these are things that, when we boil it all down, we all have. And for some to get it and for others to not get it is one of the cruelest forms of inequity that we can possibly engineer. And so,
Mr. Weiser, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I regret the time's expired. The gentleman's time's expired. Thank you, though. We're going to hopefully get a chance to finish your thought in just a second. But first, let's go to the great state of Connecticut, where